Hi guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another video on Conqueror's Blade. So today I'm going to be hopping back a few seasons and we're going to be taking a little bit of a revisit to the Pavise Crossbows. Just a sort of a quick little video. I just kind of wanted to have a look at them because the unit that I really see quite a lot still in siege battles. They still seem to be fairly popular, but I'm not sure they're really all that good anymore, or at least that's kind of been my impression. Back when they were first released, way back in Season 3, they were, a really dominant unit at the time, did intense amounts of damage. They even had sort of like a machine gun glitch at the start, which meant they could dump their entire ammunition in about 5 seconds. But anyway, they were quite strong, but come the end of the season, come the start of Season 4, they got nerfed, and I feel like they're not really quite as effective as they once were. And perhaps part of the reason they're also quite popular is they're one of the only... Well, I think they are the only season unit that's actually been added into the unit tech tree as well. For example, we actually saw them. They're also on the unit tech tree, so it can be unlocked as a Golden Era unit for 25,000 honour, or you can just do them the more traditional way and do them, through Season 3 in the actual unit challenges, the final one for Season 3. So that's kind of where all this sort of came in. So I've kind of hopped back into the battle of them and kind of see how they feel now. They're kind of, in my opinion, okay. I think they're a decent unit. They have some really positive features, one of which is the penetrating shots. I mean, that's a nice thing about all crossbows, from the arbalists up. Penetrating shots is a really nice thing because it means it goes through shields. Particularly with stalwarts being so dominant at the moment, it's nice to have an ability that can actually sort of at least do some damage to them frontally without, because currently the only real way of dealing with stalwarts is either to get a charge through them or to outflank them. So having the crossbows that can penetrate those shields frontally is a really nice thing. But I feel like after that, the benefits aren't all that strong. The rate of fire is decent, but it's not exactly amazing. And we kind of see that reflected. I am running them with a 10% rate of fire increase doctrine. I know some people have probably grabbed the rare 23% rate of fire damage doctrine that you got at the end of the Hero's Journey quest, so maybe people have been choosing that as their option, and that might knock their rate of fire up that little bit more, make them a little bit more viable. Their damage per hit is actually pretty decent. We're having a penetration of 3,000 with a damage of 2,600, but we're lower than Tercios realistically in terms of damage, and yeah, they do damage, but they're not crazy. They don't compare at all to, say, like Imperial muskets, which would do far, far higher damage in a similar situation. They're sort of somewhere between the Imperials and Tercios for tankiness. 6,100 hit points, pretty decent, not too bad. Piercing defense isn't great, but they do get that Pavise shield, which they can bring out. If they start getting shot at from enemy range, they can bring the shield out, and that, is a real bonus. One thing that is kind of quite nice about them, particularly when you start getting shot at by like a short bow hero or something like that, and you can just pull your shields out, and not completely immune, but it does reduce the amount of damage you're going to be taking. Also, when you have the shields out, their rate of fire is a little bit slower, so you do kind of have to bear that in mind. Another frustrating element I find about them is their movement speed. 3.5? They are painfully slow, and it's noticeable. Bring them into battles, particularly if you're bringing them from a distant supply or something like that, and it feels like it takes an absolute age for them to actually reach you. So, yeah, you do have to bear in mind. A little bit painful. A kind of a frustrating unit to play is, for me, the best way of putting it. But anyway, let's hop into a battle with them. They certainly do have certain potential when things work out. So let's kind of see if we can actually get some decent damage and see if we can actually kind of have a good game with these guys. So here we are, into battle on Orgolia. It's just been an incredibly frustrating day today. Been playing for like 5, 6, 7 hours now, and I just cannot get a good game. Every game is sort of okay, or just sort of average. So anyway, this was the best I could do today with these Pavise, and I'm just fed up now, so this is what you're going to get. It doesn't even start off very well, so we push up the siege tower. I know it's a bad idea to be going up here. There's no allied support. I fire one volley into the back of those sort of units. I know that's going to immediately attract attention, so I don't want to stay there. And immediately get caught in this sort of camera bug in the tower. I couldn't get my unit off the tower. Incredibly frustrating. Good job the microphone was off the recording on this one. So anyway, we go up, basically do nothing. I felt like the whole team was just suiciding themselves into the main gate, even though we'd got the tower up at B. So anyways, I thought, right, come on Evo, pull yourself together. Throw the unit back on supply. There's no point just suiciding my unit for no reason. Get them healed back up, get back up to strength, and let's sort of reassess and kind of decide what we want to do. Got these Imperial Javelins turned up. I was quite pleased with that. Good unit, good pushing unit. They also form like a bit of a shield wall. So once my unit had healed up on the supply, I'm happy to call them back towards me. And we've got to decide what we want to do. I was actually thinking about trebbing those archers at the back as well, but an ally does it, so good. Although unfortunately it doesn't land quite right, the treb. It gets some of them, but it doesn't really get the full stack of the unit. I'm not quite sure what they are. I think they might be Imperials. The damage they do is really quite high, so I suspect they might be, but I can't quite see from here. So drawing myself back up, and they're my first focus. So I pull out my shields. Again, kind of getting caught with my camera on this tower, but we start getting some shots off of them, not amazingly. You can see I've really can't let me get off the tower and aim at them a bit better. But that's kind of my primary target, and that's one of the benefits of the Pavise shields on these guys, is the fact that I can sort of counter that range with fairly minimal amounts of damage, and I shouldn't be too worried. And as you can see, we're still racking up some kills on them. Hardly exactly eliminating them too quickly, but getting the ones, at least the ones near the edge. So with that out of the way, of calling the unit towards me, again, kind of held up a little bit by this movement speed. You know, I'd much rather get them into position quicker. But once we get up to the wall, I should be safe from the range fire above, and so I can sort of drop the shields away now for the extra rate of fire and start shooting. A quick little tip for this map is, particularly on this B point, you'll see initially I just checked behind me, because sometimes people can hide cav at the very end stretch of the wall on the B point, and just as everyone gets on and sets up and faces the only point of danger, this gateway, you know, you get rear charged by a unit of monastics. It's a real sort of classic move, so I'm always trying to be at least semi-conscious of the chance of getting rear flanked on this map. So we're now set up and sort of putting fire in on the units in front of us. Quite a few enemy shield units here. You see sort of what we're heading for. I'm trying, when I remember, at least to use my glaive to buff the damage of the unit, to kind of keep them going. I thought they might push in there a little bit, but I was kind of overreacting to the danger, so it wasn't really necessary. But the unit is now auto-aggressing and sort of shooting in. Not doing tons of damage to the shield unit. When it does the penetrating shot, we seem to be hitting for maybe about 1,000. Did kill that enemy hero though, which was kind of nice. And we're obviously hitting here through some of the paladins and stuff as well. But you know, we are racking up kills. They're not doing too badly. We must have had sort of 20-30 kills so far, so it's not so much a bad thing. I would question, if I had a unit of tercios, would I have done better? Possibly. I think, particularly at the start when we're dealing with some of those enemy archers, the Pavise they excel in that sort of situation and are better than that. But I think just for raw damage output, Kriegs or tercios, or certainly Imperials, are much better for that just raw damage. So then we're moving on, was just pushing up. I tend to use them as quite a close range unit. Oh, I didn't actually notice that. Is that the real Evo? Yes, it is. Hello, person in chat. So, yes, I'm trying to use them in quite an aggressive manner, trying to push them up quite close, so that they're always sort of in range, they can just always hit and kind of apply as much of the damage as they can. Again, using my glaive buff to sort of just increase the damage the unit of crossbows does. You see we're hitting those pike militia sort of 1,500 to 2,000. So, I mean, it takes a unit like that without shields down pretty quickly, you know, quite effective in that sort of capacity. Seemed like the bulk of the team was now looking towards pushing down the D point. I was kind of a bit nervous about doing this. I felt like this was going to go wrong because it's a little bit committal going to the D point. There's no real way out from this point because the C point behind us will more than likely get closed off. And I thought we were going to get overwhelmed here. But, you know, there's too much of the team is committed, so I certainly don't want to back out because, I mean, that's just really abandoning the team. So, you know, I'm going to be a complete coward. So I thought, well, we're in for it now, so let's just sort of go for it. We're throwing the fire against the front of those Imperial shields. You see, they penetrate maybe a third, maybe half of the shots. And you see we're hitting for perhaps about 1,000. You know, it's doing damage. It's certainly not to be sniffed at. And then as the team pushes up more and more, I'm just sort of dragging the unit up with me, trying to keep that damage applied. Get pushed by these, a prefecture guard coming down the stairs. Do rack up a fair chunk of damage against these guys. Although I get a bit stunned by their charge, which is kind of annoying. But, you know, these guys, not that much health, not that much armour. These are hitting for the full 2,000 a hit. And yeah, it cuts them down pretty quickly. And at this sort of range, they really do not miss at all. And that's really where they excel. Thought I was going to get hit by that javelin volley, but he didn't. Thankfully, he was aiming at someone else. That enabled me free just to keep up the fire on them. That's why I quickly whipped out my shields, though, because I thought I was going to get hit by those javelins. A few tasty little serfs. I'm not against a few little kills to haul there. No complaints. And, you know, we're getting up towards 100 kills now. And we've captured the D point. How instrumental we were in that push, you know, hard to say. We've certainly contributed because we're certainly racking up the kills. And we are doing damage against sort of higher tier or harder to kill units like some of those shields and stuff. And that is important. Try to sort of push some of these enemy heroes out. Unfortunately, don't quite get any of the kills on them. We get a little bit of damage. And pretty much the supply point secured and captured, which is exactly what we need because our ammo is nigh on that, finished at this point. So one thing to comment on these Pavise is that the ammo is actually really quite nice. I find it lasts quite a long time. I guess that's in part due to they're not crazy rate of fire, but they actually have just a large ammo capacity. So yeah, ammo absolutely fine on this unit. I noticed that the enemy, kind of what I was saying earlier about, you know, you're going to get cut off in this position unless you capture the D point. And it's actually kind of true, but thankfully we were able to capture the D point before they cut us off. We get some rear shots into these stalwarts. You see a couple of hits there with some really high hits there. I think we got even like a 3,800 critical in the rear. Really nice damage shooting into the back of those shields. But as we come round, I'm a little bit conscious of this cannon, but it's just fired, so it feels I can get some shots on those enemy ranged. Quite a long aiming time with these crossbows. They don't snap fire like a musket unit does. But with those guys dead, I can now just sort of set up and put my fire into these stalwarts quite safely because there's nothing that can fire back at me. And they're quite a long way away. Even with my slow run speed, there's fair enough friendly units around me to protect me. So as our units start to push up, I'm trying to push up with them. Trying to just keep this damage on. And I think I've actually done a reasonable job of keeping the unit in the game now pretty much the whole time. You know, we've been basically up front and firing the entire match since I've had them now. And I think that's really what you've got to try and do to make them excel. And I'm just, again, trying to use my glaive buff to keep that damage. We get an extra 15% damage with that. So, you know, that's actually quite a chunk when you're dealing damage like that. And we cut through the stalwarts fairly effectively. Obviously, it wouldn't work if we didn't have the friendly unit here to support. But the amount of extra damage we do really kind of assists in that fight. I was just kind of curious to see if we're going to clip any of those heroes, but it doesn't look like we were. And actually, we're pushing much harder on point than I thought we were. Thinking, crikey, we're almost captured already. So pushing up, getting a bit of damage, trying to get myself set up just to cover this point to throw more range damage on it. Get a full unit of paladins charging it. Now really obviously close range here, so we can get some damage in. Give my buff again to both the friendly unit and some of our allies around. And yeah, we're able to continue to get damage in. How many kills on that unit that we got, sort of maybe 8 or 10, maybe a third of that unit we killed. So it goes to show you the damage isn't too bad. And that really is about enough. We get pushed by this last desperate clutch from these men-at-arms, who just managed to get onto the point in time. But with the enemy spawn access still blocked off by friendly units, they actually can't get down to reinforce their point. And that is enough to really finish the unit off and kind of make it game, set and match. Just clutch that last hero kill just before the end of the game. So that's been my experience with Pavise Crossbows so far. 3 hero kills, 100 unit kills. Not bad for a unit of this type. I think their burst damage isn't very high. I think that's where they fall down compared to something like Imperial muskets. I think they're more comparable in damage to something like a Tercio. But again, I think the Tercios might be slightly higher. But these guys do have the shields much more better. Not very well English. God blimey, words are failing me. They do a lot better against range because of their Pavise shields. That's kind of the nice benefit of them. And they are a nice cross between sort of Imperials and Tercios in terms of their survivability. But anyway, that's kind of my impressions of them at this stage of the game. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, do let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for lots more Conqueror's Blade content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I shall see you all on the next video.